I'll tell you. Well, do you want to? We have to do an intro.
Let's bring in Pearl Jam, then we'll talk about
it.
Coming up, Jake Gyllenhaal, but first, Pearl Jam. Good times all the way around. All right, first, Pearl Jam. But first, the Rock and Roll Hall of Famers, Pearl Jam. But first, Pearl Jam. But first, Pearl Jam. Coming up first, the Rock and Roll Hall of Famers, Pearl Jam. I'm a terrible father, as you're about to find out. But first, Pearl Jam. Let's get to the pod. But first, Pearl Jam. But first, the Rock and Roll Hall of Famers. New documentary out, by the way. We're going to talk about that next week. Pearl Jam. And then Mark Maron. Right now, Nathan Fielder. But first, Pearl Jam. Of the two, by far, coming up. But first, Pearl Jam. But first, Pearl Jam. Next week on the BS podcast. Right now, the Rock and Roll Hall of Famers, Pearl Jam. And a little Chris Ryan, disgruntled Sixers fan. But first, here are the boys from Pearl Jam. We're going to bring in Pearl Jam, then we're off. Diehard Dodgers and New York Giants fan. But first, Pearl Jam. So there you go. First Pearl Jam, and then my buddy Jacko. Let's go. At the tail end. So that's coming up after Sean and Wesley. But first, Pearl Jam. But first, Pearl Jam. But first, Pearl Jam. All coming up. But first, Pearl Jam. Speaking of podcasts, we are going to do something a little polarizing coming up right after our friends from Pearl Jam. But first, 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 Pearl Jam.